Hi, welcome to AFTV. I've got Julian with me. We've just drawn 1-1 to Manchester United here at Old Trafford. I asked the last fan, I probably asked most fans this, does it feel like a loss? Does it feel like a loss to you?
No, because I still have respect the fact this is Old Trafford. It's an away game at historically one of the greatest teams in Premier League history. Probably it is the greatest team in Premier League history.
Remind me of the energy you had coming up here in the road trip. Did you predict that it would win by quite a few clear goals?
I predicted that we would win 2-0 or 0-2 to be exact. And when you look at it, we should have done. Well, we should have done before the game.
I was going to say, because if you're watching a game, you'll be saying they probably had the upper hand.
Yeah, but if you look to the beginning of the game, and I've had this quite often, there seems to be only one team that can win the game. And it reminds me a little bit, I was looking back at other games that are similar, and there's been a lot of games that have been similar, and one that comes to mind as the most similar was Ipswich at home. And I thought Manchester United were very similar to Ipswich at home, in as much as they didn't seem to have any confidence whatsoever in their own abilities. They weren't in any way reflective of what I said before, the fact that they are the best Premiership team in the history of the Premier League. They seemed a team devoid of good players, good management, and good form and confidence.
Well, you say they were devoid of good players, but Bruno put in a superb free kick. He had a good game in my opinion today, but he put in a superb free kick against us.
Yeah, and that was all they did in the beginning of the game. But the game changed. And what's also indicative of the way that Arsenal played is that I seem to be getting a lot of deja vu at the moment, because there's been lots of teams that play in that way. Ipswich were one of them, but there's been countless teams that Arsenal have played against, mainly at home, but away as well. And today, Man United played in exactly that way, and Arsenal still didn't have the answer to be able to defeat that way of playing.
So is that making Amorim a bad coach or a good coach? Because if you look at Arsenal and you think, well, I know how to beat them, just go on low block and make it frustrating for them, and that's what they've done. So you're saying that, bad players, bad manager, but if I'm being honest, they got it right today. I know they didn't win, but they're probably walking away happy with that point.
So what Amorim's done is what pretty much every manager does when they have an inferior team to Arsenal. So what I'm saying is Arsenal are a superior footballing team, and the tactics that Amorim put in was the tactics of a weak, I don't want to use any sort of too derogatory comment, but pathetic teams that come and all they do is just defend. That's all they've got to offer.
Okay, so a lot of the teams that we played that have done low blocks are pathetic to you, basically.
Well, it's pathetic as in they're not willing to come and play football. And you wouldn't expect that.
Is that not a good game? Is that not intelligence from the manager?
It's intelligent when you understand and you you accept that what you've got to play with is something inferior. And what Amorim did was accept, and fair play to him, he accepted that United are an inferior footballing team to Arsenal. And you wouldn't expect that of a Manchester United team, especially at home, with all the infrastructure.
But this season, they're sitting in 14th. So there's context to that. There's context that they're at the bottom half of the table, that sometimes the managers understanding where they are at the moment. So that's why they are seen as inferior. Because I know some fans we watch is getting rattled, but that is the case at the moment for United. But they come out of a point, and if I'm honest, you're talking about all of this, but they had the better chances today.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, not only
which is a worry for Arsenal fans.
Not only are they seen as being inferior, but as you quite rightly said, the league doesn't lie, and the league puts them in 14th place. So everything I've said before the game stands true. Right. But Arsenal's performance wasn't good. Yeah. It wasn't good because we're not able to counter this low block, which should be the least we could do. Even Liverpool yesterday, I watched their game and they encountered something similar. They had Southampton that were clinging on for dear life. You looked at that game before and the positions of Liverpool and the positions of Southampton. I don't think there's been a game in the Premier League with that wider division of points in the last 5 years. You'd expect Liverpool to batter them like 8, 9, 10-0. But they didn't. But what they were able to do was eventually break down what they were faced with. And that's something that we haven't been able to do today, and we haven't been able to do it countless times this season. And that's the reason why we're not winning the league. Not because we don't have the better players, because when teams that are inferior to us, which is pretty much every team in the Premier League,
bar Liverpool,
because Liverpool are ahead of us, play against us in that way, we're not able to effectively combat that way of football, and that is the issue. And what happened on Tuesday night at PSV was we scored an early goal, and then that team had to come out and attack, and we took advantage. But if we've got to score an early goal every time, then that's not going to happen every time. So we surely must have a plan B to be able to break these low blocks down.
So whose responsibility does that lie on then? Who's blame? Where do you put the blame for that? Because you're right, I'm getting frustrated watching Arsenal. You said it feels like deja vu. I'm getting frustrated coming to watch games where we are just waiting for us to do something up front, to do something in attack, and it just waits and the other team score, and then we're under more pressure, and these things happen. So whose fault is that? We haven't been able to break down a low block pretty much all season, really.
Yeah. What we saw on Tuesday was we have the ability still to score a lot of goals.
But PSV wasn't playing the style that you've just spoke about for the past 6-7 minutes.
Exactly. So if you can't blame the players, then there's only one person to blame, which is the manager and the trainers. So
or the board, or the owners.
Well, no, I'm not blaming the board or the owners, because the owners you can put everything down to the owners, because the owners put everyone in place. So you could blame them for absolutely everything that goes wrong. But if you blame them for everything that goes wrong, you've also got to credit them for everything that goes right. In this instance, when you're looking at what's gone wrong, for me, what's gone wrong is the style of football against that low block. And so then it would have to come down to Arteta. But I'm not going to say too many negative things about Arteta because of where he's brought us to. We are, as what I said at the beginning of the interview and a number of times in between, a very good footballing team. Superior, but we're struggling against teams that are inferior to us, and that's what I'm getting frustrated with.
Okay, you spoke a lot about where we are and the other teams and whatnot. Let's just talk about a bit more positive notes today, which we're going to go to David Raya. David Raya today, Julian. I've seen good goalkeeper performances in my time, but United are bad. But I tell you what, we could have been embarrassed today if it wasn't for that man.
We could have absolutely been embarrassed. The saves that he made were absolutely tremendous saves, world-class saves. Not only the save at the end, but then when he recovered. It was the getting up. And I have played in goal, and I've seen a lot of goalkeepers, and it's not just that initial reaction save. The initial reaction is just your reactions, but it's the desire to then spring up and save it again. And it was tremendous. But for the goal, I would say that I would hold him slightly at fault. Because of his position, you shouldn't be beaten from that distance, when it's not right in the corner. So I have to hold him slightly responsible. But who I hold more responsible for that goal is the referee.
Just explain before we close.
Okay, and not because of the fact it wasn't a foul, because I think Trossard did foul. But he paced out how far back the wall should be.
Right.
And he paced it out. And it's been measured on Sky. I've seen it.
I was going to say, because you were so far away in the away end to see him do the steps.
Yeah, well, obviously I looked very intensely at the game, but he was the Arsenal wall was 11.2 yards back from where the free kick was. And you could say, oh, it's now 11.2 yards, but that is 12% further back than it should be, and that 12% allowed Fernandes. And it was a good, and I'm not going to take too much away from that free kick, but that 1.2 extra yards, 11.2%, made it easier for him to get it over the wall and into the net. And that was Anthony Taylor, and that wasn't the only thing that guy did. I always research the referees, and the guy lives in Manchester. He lives in Manchester.
No, I know that.
We should have had a penalty. Aidan Heaven, last time I checked the rules, and I know they keep changing the offside rules, but when a guy catches the ball in the area, that to me is a penalty.
Yeah,
and there was a number of other decisions that I could go into, but Anthony Taylor, we should have won.